Hey everyone, welcome back to Apollo Art Analysis. This episode would be studying a piece by the career 3D artist known as Ryan Hawthorne, and in this episode we'd be looking at the Simpler Time series, and we're also looking at Michelangelo's Pieta, so let's jump right into it. So whenever you first see this work, remember the single subject set in center, kind of a statue here amidst a highly futuristic backing. It catches the eye instantly and of course strikes us. We wonder what exactly we're looking at. What you may notice here is the grand scale of this composition. We see such a wide canvas here. When elements of art are increased in scale, it almost always conveys a sense of status in some way or another. Another thing we notice is the impact of color. What you'll notice is you see green, blue, and a little bit of purple. That's going to be an analogous scheme, but upon that we have the color red. So the color red is certainly the rarest color here, and it kind of contrasts against those three additional colors. So it's quite interesting. Of course, it's going to catch the eye and bring us within here instantly. What's so interesting here is the impact of texture as well. We see this everywhere, from the much more smooth facing on our subject to the kind of rigid backing and the reflective shiny floor there, all of which immerse us with the scene quite masterfully, give us an incredible sense of realism here. And with this in mind, this reflection's quite interesting, right? Kind of translates the impact of color below, so it kind of translates that visual energy as well. Just like texture that we mentioned previously, this also immerses us with the scene at hand quite masterfully. With this in mind, what do y'all see when you view this work, or how do you feel when you view this work? Pretty interesting question we may ask. What you'll notice here is the near-symmetrical format as well. This is really split across a vertical central axis. When we see elements of symmetry, it almost always gives a sense of order, harmony, and balance. So we certainly see that within the composition before us here. It's so interesting. The composition is quite large, right? You see these two kind of darker discs, and these are quite definitive to this display because they catch the eye, and the eye kind of falls into the main subject. You just wander and fall back onto this main subject here. So there's really no doubt that it frames the subject quite masterfully, and of course is always going to draw the eye. Like we said, with that symmetry, it gives us a sense of balance on either side, but at the same time it frames that central subject. So kind of multiple things going on here. It's really, really interesting and very intriguing as well. So the title of this work is called Era. So this really hints at kind of the influence of what we're seeing here. This is actually from the Simpler Time series, which takes different, really not specifically from the Renaissance, but a lot of classic sculptures and revives them in a contemporary context. We see that here quite well. And so the central subject here is actually Michelangelo's Pieta. So we're going to take the Pieta here, see what we can learn, and get some insights real quick. All right, so we have the piece we're studying here, and then we have a photograph of the original statue that it's inspired by. So, just after working with the Medicis, Michelangelo actually moved to his new home of Rome. And while he was there, he was commissioned to create a statue, and that's really what we see here on the right. What you see, of course, in the terms of scene here, what we see in the terms of context, what we see in the term of kind of symbolic meaning, we have an adult version of Christ in the lap of Mary. He's certainly after crucifixion, you see just his lifeless body there. But this statue is really seen as a miracle, as although it is made of pure marble, it just looks so delicate. The incredible drapery of the cloth there looks so realistic. Even right here, you can tell that he is being held up in that sense of the absence of life and that kind of the weight of the body there. It's so prevalent. And so we see that, and of course, Simpler Times takes a much more low poly rendering of that. We see the exact scene. You see Mary staring down at the adult body of Christ there. We see that in incredible minimalist form, very reductionist, but it's absolutely stunning, and it really fits within the work at hand. There's no doubt about that. So an incredibly symbolic, incredibly historic statue from the period of the Renaissance, now revived in the contemporary context. So that's really the bulk of the symbolism within the work at hand here. So with this in mind, how do you feel when you view this work? I know I asked that earlier, but I want to ask it again. After seeing some of those symbolic contexts, how do you feel when you view this work, or what do you think we're looking at here? Pretty interesting questions, of course, an incredibly futuristic background. There's no doubt about that. So like I said, this is from the Simpler Time series by Ryan Hawthorne. So if you want to check that out, he has some great resources on his website, and a lot of these are actually minted as NFTs as well, especially this one I know is on OpenSea. So I'm going to take some additional pieces from the Simpler Time series, just kind of compared to the work at hand, and then we're going to head out here. All right, so about two different works on the Simpler Time series. We have 1 and 2 here. What you'll notice, of course, like we talked about in this work, those low poly renderings of those statues are quite interesting. And of course, Ryan Hawthorne does an incredible job at spatial placement. You see just the convergence and the framing in multiple different ways, from the circle to, different rays and straight lines there. Of course, all of which are going to frame and elevate the visual impact of our subject there. Very minimalist series, very inspired by history, but like I said, revived in the contemporary context. We certainly see that. Great example of framing there as well. You have that darker kind of oculus, if you will, that really pops out and allows that light on dark accent to catch the eye. So really stunning, and Simpler Times is such an amazing series. I really hope y'all enjoy it today. Talked about so many different things, from the impact of space, Simpler Times series, Michelangelo's Pieta, so many different things from art history as well as spatial placement that we really discussed here. Really hope y'all enjoyed. If y'all did, go check out the original artist Ryan Hawthorne doing some amazing stuff in the world of 3D art. But like I said, an amazing piece, and I absolutely love to study it. My name is Apollo. This was Apollo Art Analysis, and I'll see y'all on the next episode. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you'd like to support our work directly, please check out our Apollo community tokens. Apollo Art Exchange is an ecosystem of art appreciation which elevates artists each and every day. Thanks for listening.